Damien is all grown up and well on his way to fulfilling his dark destiny, but there's just one little wrinkle. His counterpart, the Second Coming of Christ, is about to be born. Omen 3, The Final Conflict, certainly has a wild plot, but does that translate to an entertaining movie? Time to find out. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Can you blood me?
This is a horror movie podcast. So October Thaw, we're doing a bunch of episodes, and one of the things that we're doing this year is, and we always try and work through a franchise of sorts over the month. This year we're doing the Omen franchise, building up to the new release from earlier this year, the first Omen. Today is the third entry in the series, and that is the Omen 3, The Final Conflict.
Or this title threw me for a loop, because I was looking in some places it's just called The Final Conflict, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me, come on.
Actually, my title card just said The Final Conflict when I was watching it.
I think mine too.
Yeah.
I was like, gee, I think I already complained the last episode where they did the subtitle first and then, you know, the Omen 2, and now they're just this franchise is out of control.
Yeah, it seems to be really inconsistent. I don't know if they originally had the Omen 3, they added it in later, maybe some territories are just Omen 3, because I'm looking at a poster on IMDb right now and it just says Omen 3, so clearly the naming scheme was all over the place with this. So yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, Omen 1's a classic. Omen 2 was a mixed bag, but did have some interesting or fun scenes. So, you know, we had some nice things to say. Coming into this one, Damien has aged up. He is now played by Sam Neill. He is 32, and we'll get into the crazy plot in a little bit, but I'll just start off by saying, as per usual, we'll start spoiler-free, as we always do. We'll give you a warning if we get the spoilers, and of course, if you are enjoying the show, do give us a like on YouTube, and you can get bonus content from us on Patreon or via YouTube membership, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So, the plot of this one, I will give it this. It's definitely a crazier plot than Omen 2. Which is basically the Second Coming of Christ is going to be born, or has maybe just been born, and Damien is instructing his followers, his acolytes, to try and find and kill the Second Coming of Christ. So this movie has more, I mean, it's off screen, don't get me wrong, but this movie has more killing of babies than any movie I have maybe ever watched in my time. So,
oh, I mean, when you have so many that you have to do a montage, maybe
there's a montage.
It's time to dial back.
What a montage that is. So much to talk about with this. There's also some holy priests that are trying to kill Damien, and that's also going on. But I'll leave it there. We'll save the rest for spoilers. That's the basic gist of the movie. So, obviously we have both seen this before, so which it actually did kind of affect my kind of I don't know how to phrase this. I will say I felt slightly differently this time versus the first time, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and I was trying to put that in a more eloquent way, and I realized no such way existed. So here we are. Let's just be blunt. Tim, what did you think of Omen 3, The Final Conflict?
So like you said, I had seen it before, but I think I mentioned this in the other reviews. I had very little memory of the sequels. I think I've only seen them like probably one time each a few years ago. And it's kind of funny, if you would have asked me how big a role these daggers from the first movie play in these sequels, I would have been like, oh yeah, they're probably barely in them, right? And it's like, oh no, they're like an integral part.
This
part of
movie opens with like one of the daggers. Like this is the entire opening of this movie is about someone finding these daggers. I will say this though, Tim, the rules about these daggers have changed a little bit since the first movie, but anyway, continue your thoughts.
But yeah, I really didn't remember much going into this other than that Sam Neill was in it, and yeah, I'm not crazy about this movie. I don't think that the franchise has like, gone into horribleness territory yet. Like, you know, the
That's a big yet.
yeah. But you know, I mean, like sometimes, especially I feel like, you know, with more classic movies, you know, it can be a pretty steep drop off, and I would say that, yeah, the drop off, I guess, was pretty big between the sequels, but like, you know, the second one and then this one, like, they're not horrible. Like, I don't mind or hate watching them, but yeah, they definitely don't live up to the first one, and they're getting a little less so in my mind. But I, like you mentioned with the second one, I am still gonna have some positive things to say about this. Like, you know, Sam Neill is obviously a very good actor. Like, you know, a little younger here than maybe I'm used to seeing him in some other stuff, but you know, I think he's still enjoyable to see. There's some plot ideas that I think are pretty fun. There's also some plot stuff that I have some issues with. I would say that there's like a couple pretty decent kills in this. Not as good as, you know, the ones that we have in the previous movie, but there's still a few ones here that I'm like, okay, that was kind of cool. Yeah, and I don't know. I guess the rest of the stuff kind of I'll go into save for spoilery bits, but you know, I'm not super hot on this, but I don't hate it. Like, it's a fine enough watch, I guess.
What's funny is that I remembered like a couple of key sequences which kind of stand out, much like some of the scenes in Omen 2. There's a couple of, one's a death scene, one's kind of, well, I guess the other one's a death scene too, but it's very different context of a death scene. But I'd kind of like forgotten about another 2 or 3 big moments that also were kind of memorable now that I've watched it again. And because I remembered it being a bit of a slog, because it is almost 2 hours long, which I do think is maybe its biggest downfall. I will say I feel a bit more positive this time. Not that it's a great movie or even a good movie, to be honest. I think one of the biggest problems you have with this is fundamentally, I think Damien is more interesting when he's got mystique about him, and you had that when he was a kid, and he doesn't know what he is, but all this stuff's happening around him for him, but he doesn't really understand it. When you've got Damien as an adult character who's like, yes, I'm the son of Satan, and like my followers, we're going to do all this. Like, him just talking about it is a matter of fact thing. There's no, like, I don't know, there's just no vibe to it. It just feels really hammy, I guess.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this before in the other ones, but I don't like him being self-aware. Like, I think it would be much more interesting in the movies if, like, all this weird stuff was happening around him and crazy people are constantly coming up to him and being like, you're the son of the devil. And he was just like, what are you talking about? Like, why is this part of my life? Like, and then, you know, him learning to either kind of fight it or accept it. That's a more interesting arc than just, yeah, him being very typically evil. And one of the like parts of this movie that actually like is the idea of like this, you know, sect of priests that are like assassins trying to.
Hey, do you know what? I'm going to give this some credit because it's not necessarily good, but I will say a lot of this ended up being comedy gold.
Oh yeah, there's this one death that's just so over the top.
Is it? Can I just say, is it the one in the TV studio?
Of course, yes.
Yes. Okay. Some of the other ones are quite funny as well, to be fair, but the TV studio was particularly good.
Yeah, but I think like this would be such an interesting horror movie if you had someone who was, you know, the son of the devil but didn't realize it, and then the horror came from these people constantly trying to kill him and he doesn't know why, and you know, that'd be something like you haven't really, you know, I feel like that's not something you see in horror movies that often, where it's like, oh, he's like the bad guy, but the horror is coming. Yeah.
The final girl realizes at the end that they are the villain.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously I'm critiquing something that the movie doesn't do, so whatever. But I don't know. To me, like something like that would be a little bit more interesting than, like you're saying, yeah, him just constantly being all evil and stuff is just not as like a take I like as much.
I think it's fine if he knows he's evil, right? But I think he should be playing it closer to the chest, or maybe doesn't have characters that he openly talks to about it, because it's just so blatant and just kind of, you know, like scene chewing a little bit. And I'm not even critiquing his performance here. They do a good job. They give him the haircut that's very much like young Damien, so he feels like an adult version of Damien. He's always got the black suit and all the rest of it. But it does kind of feel just like it's lacking that kind of sense of dread and mystique. And this movie, by the end, certainly goes a bit more heavy into just stuff. Like, I'll say the ending, while there's parts of it that I think are amazing just because it's funny, there's also parts of it's like, oh, really? We're just doing this? Okay. But I can't really talk about any of it until spoilers, so I'm just... consider that a tease.
Yeah, I have thoughts about the ending, but we'll save it.
So, but that said, though, I do think there's several good death scenes. I do think that all the stuff with the B plot, if you want to call it that, with the priests, I do think leads to a lot of funny stuff. I also think that some of the plot, particularly in the middle, when it becomes about going after a bunch of babies, is kind of delightfully just evil. And I just like, there's definitely like, there's lots of crazy things in it that make it entertaining. I think, particularly in this watch, where I found myself being entertained by a lot of things in it. Not always for good reasons, but I can't deny that it was coming at me fairly consistently. And I was not expecting to say this, but I think there's an argument that I might have liked this a little bit more than 2. And again, they're both operating at a very, like not great territory, but I think it's grown on me a little bit since the first time, and maybe it's just because I love movies that don't hold back from killing kids, but but it's still
I would say there's a pretty big drop off from the first one to the second one.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, absolutely.
But I do think 2 and 3 they're on pretty equal footing. I'm not sure. I probably have to sit and think which one I enjoyed better, because like they both have flaws, but they're both like kind of different.
I think the plot in this is, for better or worse, the plot in this one is far more interesting.
Yeah. You know what? I think it is. This one does feel a little less serious. Like you said, like there's a bit more, probably not intentional, but like comedic bits and stuff. And that's probably a better route to go, because the first one is just so good, and you're probably never gonna, obviously never gonna top it or probably even match it. But so
the pressure's on first Omen for us now. Like, you got a lot of proof here.
But I mean, like, probably the best way to go about it is then like, all right, let's just kind of go more into the cheesy, over the top kind of area. Like, I don't know. I
mean, if 2 went even more Final Destination, obviously that didn't exist at the time, but if it went more Final Destination-y, like, I could see that kind of working as kind of a pulpy, just kind of fun, like, kill movie.
Get rid of some of the more like businessy subplots and stuff they don't care
this
about.
One, you just tighten it up a little bit, just cut it about 20 minutes, just tighten it up. I think you'd have a pretty fun, kind of weird, crazy movie.
Maybe try to get to like the plot a little bit faster, because like you said, like
it takes a little bit of time.
All the, what do they call it, the Nazarene or whatever, he's like going after.
That said, though, there's some scenes early on of like astronomers looking at stars and talking about how they're aligning. And when it cut to that scene, I'm like, what is this? This is not an Omen movie. This is like a scene from Deep Impact, like seeing the asteroids on its way.
But the weird thing is, like, that stuff feels like it comes in like pretty late. Like it seems like ultimately that's what the movie becomes about, and then it's like, oh, like it feels like it wasn't like this for a while though.
That's fair. Maybe it takes a little bit to get cooking. There's a really great death scene quite early on, just to keep us interested, but after that it probably does take a little bit, just because it's setting up Damien moving to the UK. He's the ambassador to the UK, just like his dad was, yada yada yada. So no, but I mean, it's not a great or even a good movie, but I found myself just kind of enjoying it more for what it is this time, despite its flaws. Which, it's kind of how you have to like tackle a lot of horror sequels usually, because, you don't go into, whatever Elm Street movie expecting the first one. Although that said, I think the third one tops the first one, but that's a rare exception kind of thing. So, I mean, all things considered, I think I found that 2 and 3 had a bit more going for them than I think I remembered. And maybe it's just because this time I actually paid attention to them more than maybe I did in previous viewings, because I was actually, going to talk about them. So I'm like, okay, I'm giving it my whole attention. I'm thinking about it. I'm watching it. And I got a little bit more out of it this time on that terms. again, it's kind of a silly sequel, but it's got its fun moments. So
I mean, they're definitely not great, but they're also not like train wrecks or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you know, they're watchable, which, you know, you can't really say for other horror sequels.
well, other Omen movies, to be honest, which we're not gotten to yet. I mean, I don't want to say how I feel about 4, because to be honest, I don't know if 4's kind of in the same lines of these two, or if it's a big drop off. I do know, though, from memory, that the remake is a massive drop off from even these. So
yeah, I remember nothing about 4. So who knows? That one might be a little bit of a surprise. Like, again, not expecting it to be good, but maybe we'll watch it and be like, oh, this has like some cheesy funness to it.
I think I remember
remake.
one,
I'm not looking forward to.
I remember like one scene from 4, I think, and obviously I remember that it's a girl instead of a boy.
Oh, okay.
But that's it. Did you not even remember that? it's little,
they went woke. Oh my god.
It's little
Omen.
Damaline. I don't know. Is there a female version of the name Damien? I don't think there is.
Demia, I don't know.
Damsel. That's a bit weird. But yeah, I don't know. But you know, like it's got its moments, and maybe it's just my low expectations going in. But I kind of found myself going, you know, I'm having a bit of fun with this. Like I say, if you cut out like 20 minutes, you tightened it up, I could see it being kind of recommendable as as it is. I would say that you have to kind of lower your expectations, go in with a certain mindset. Don't expect like the Omen again by any stretch. And, you know, have fun with it. But, yeah. Sure. Could be worse.
Which doesn't sound like great praise, but considering some of the movies we've seen on the show, that's
Sure.
actually pretty good standard.
Like, we've watched much worse things this year on this show.
Absolutely.
Much worse. So, you know, take it for what you will. All right, let's just say spoilers so we can start talking about everything. I think instead of going through this in order, which I feel like I'd struggle with, to be honest, there's like basically like 3 lanes to talk about things in. All right, okay. You've got the you know, the second coming of Christ stuff and everything that kind of like spins around that. You've got the priest coming to kill Damien. You've got Damien's like personal life and like his sort of love interest and like,
oh yeah, this is the first one where he's old enough to get laid.
That's true, and he does get laid. Not only does he get laid, he gets kind of rough, and I can only describe what he does. So they're in the missionary position, right? And he flips her around so that he's like on her back, and I can only describe what he does. I mean, obviously the sex thing's happening as well, but he puts her in a full Nelson. Right, you know, he puts his arms under her arms and like locks his hands behind her head. That's a full Nelson.
So hot.
I'm just like, I mean, all right, you got a wrestling move in the middle of your sex, why not?
Well, I mean, you know, at least he didn't do like that Stone Cold Stunner or something.
I mean, yeah. that would be stranger. That said, some wrestling moves are a little sexual. I mean, Pile Driver already sounds a bit like it's gunning for something. Anyway,
yeah.
So let's start off with the second coming, right? So Damien early on reads a passage from the Bible that basically says, yeah, the second coming's coming. Those are horrible says. The second coming is on his way to battle the Antichrist, and part of me was like, you know, they've really mistimed this because the Antichrist is already 32 and the second coming's going to be like a newborn. Like, it's going to be years before the new Jesus could even muster up a bit of a fight. Like, what they're going to, like, the priests are going to have to hide him and keep him safe for like 18 years at the least before he's ready to like, you know, do divine battle or whatever it's going to be.
And like, I don't know, man, maybe if you know, like, when this kid's gonna be born, like, maybe don't write about it so that, you know, the Antichrist can find out and like know like when and where to go or whatever. Like, maybe keep that a secret.
But as we find out at the very end of the movie, Tim, there's another passage that Damien didn't read that pointed out that the second coming wouldn't be a baby. It would be whatever we see at the end of the movie. Jesus just shows up. Yeah, spoilers, everyone. Jesus shows up at the end of this movie. More on that later, though. We'll save that for the end.
Hey, guys, how's it going?
So, anyway, right, so that's the thing that's happening, and he moves to the UK, becomes ambassador, blah, 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 right? And he's starting to get, like, edgy about it, right? And we like I said, we see these scenes of, like, these priests looking at, like, through a telescope, and there's a moment where the stars align or whatever it is, and like Damien wakes up in a cold sweat as like this like biblical music's playing, and like he can feel it, he can sense that that Christ has been born, that he's around, and every day that Christ exists, he's getting weaker and weaker, and that's how it's going to work. So he's determined to kill this Jesus, and like, okay, we know he was born on this day. So it very quickly, because first it's like, hey, look for whoever it is, but very quickly he just turns to his helper, Dean, who's a pretty prominent character in this. We'll definitely be talking about his subplot later on as well. He turns to Dean and says, all right, you're going to have to kill all the boys that were born on May like 24th or whatever it was. And he's like, Damien, that's a bit extreme. You sure about that? It's like, yep, everyone. And it just so happens
this is important ambassador business.
Yes, and it just so happens that Dean just had a kid, although he says that his kid was born like 10 minutes before midnight on the 23rd. So his baby's, off limits.
And make sure to kill all the babies born on March 24th. Oh, by the way, when was your baby born? Geez, let me think about that.
23rd, yeah. So yeah, it leads to this insane montage, right? And it's again, there's like a sort of like scene where Damien flies out in a helicopter to this location where a bunch of his followers, all of like his people that help him that are in different positions around the country, are all there at like a cult. And they just sort of stand there in silence as he gives this speech about how they have to kill the second coming of Christ. And they just sort of start chanting things that he says back at him. It's very surreal and weird. Like having him like do like effectively like a Hitler speech and like for his followers. But it's all kind of moody and like, horror movie like. It's very strange. But it leads to this montage where people kill babies for him, and it's always off camera, you never see the actual thing, but like the first one is hilarious. I love this. So first of all, I love it because I'm like, wait, was this another child who did this? Because it's a woman going down the street, right? She's on the pavement with her pram, or what do you call it, a baby carriage, and she's walking down the street, and like a football just comes over a fence and hits her in the head, and the baby starts careening down the hill, right? And eventually rolls out onto the road and gets hit with a truck, and the oranges that were like in the bag with the baby in the carriage, or was it the truck had the oranges? I don't know, but oranges start rolling everywhere, right? That's how they visually show that everything's happened. You see the carriage get knocked over, and then just oranges just roll down the street.
So I thought I might have missed something, because I was like, wait, are they doing a misdirect like in Speed or something where, the thing gets hit?
No.
Right, so there was an actual baby in there.
This was just the dramatic, the shot of the orange rolling is like a symbol of what's just happened. And then you just see like two kids poke their heads up at the fence, like, oh, did we do that? But obviously these are all intentional murders, so all I can think is like, oh, these kids are in on it. They're little devil like worshippers. They've committed this crime. Like, I should not be thinking a scene where a baby is killed is funny, but this scene is hilarious.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's messed up to say, and obviously, like, if they shot it in a different way, it could be more dramatic, and you probably wouldn't feel as good as laughing. But
first things first, you don't have it all start. The plan doesn't go into motion with a ball hitting the mother in the head, right? That's slapstick.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that just sets you up. The tone of the whole scene is just established with that, and you can never come back from it. There's another one though where it's like a baby's getting baptized, and it's actually the priest who's like the devil worshipper. You don't see what he does, but he just sort of like turns his back to them and does the baptizing. He's like, "Oh, for this, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, blah blah." And then there's just like a moment where it's like he's struggled, like maybe he's strangled the baby or something, and he just turns around and you just see the mother's face go from smiling to like she's just in shock. Wait, is my baby dead? It's just wild. And there's like other couple, but those were the ones that stood out.
Yeah. No, it's bad to say, but it's like the way it is set up, like it does feel like they're playing off comedic beats or something. Like,
it's so absurdly evil that there's a montage where all of his followers are killing newborn babies around the country. That is just inherently like so absurd that you can't help but laugh at it.
Yeah, and it's always like just in like crazy ways, and the people always kind of seem to have these like playful smirks to them, which make it funny. Because like you said, you have like the little kids poking over the fence, and then I feel like the priest even kind of had this little like wicked, like
little, I'm getting away with this. Yeah. I'm an evil man, me. Imagine instead of like this, they did a scene where like a mother went into her kid's room and you saw the crib and there was blood dripping from the crib, and that's all you saw. That would be dark. That would be like, oh, that's sinister and scary.
Yeah, and then like, the mother like collapsing to the ground and just like crying her heart out or something. Like then it's like, oh yeah, like I feel horrible. But
yeah, you could play it serious and it could work, but all of these are just a little bit goofy. And then they compound each other as well, so that they just get funnier like as it goes. So yeah, that stuff is wild, and it kind of leads into like the plot with this character Dean, where like they say in TV that there's been like 90 newborn babies that were all born on this day all died like in the past week. This is very weird and strange, all freak accidents or freak things. And basically Damien's getting frustrated and says, look, there's only like 3 or 4 babies left that are not dead yet, which means if they're done and I still have this feeling that like the second coming's around, then Dean, you're killing your baby. That's what's happening. And Dean's like all on board with everything Damien says the whole movie, but to his credit, when he is told that he has to kill his own child, when that order finally comes, he is planning on running away. He is like yelling at his wife, "Hey, let's go. Let's pack your bags. We need to leave." So I don't know if you want to call that a redemption, but at the very least, there's a line that he doesn't want to cross. However, the problem with this though is that we've already had one of the devil dogs hypnotizes the wife into doing it. And the wife was already kind of suspecting that her husband had something to do with all these baby deaths, and she was really upset about it. But the dog puts her in a trance, and this was kind of interesting because you get like a little sense of what like it's done to her, because she looks down at her baby and she sees like a zombie baby or something like that, and it's like she gets like a visual that like inspires her
this
to like
is wrong
to kill the baby. But yeah, it happens off camera, of course, because they're not going to show that. But when Dean comes home and he finds the baby and he's like, oh god, what have you done? She like comes round the corner holding an iron, and she doesn't just like press the iron against him or just hit him with it. She sort of like hits him with it from the front, the pointy bit. So she stabs him in the eye with an iron, which was actually kind of a fun little death. But yeah, so that was I guess Dean's story didn't take that long. Like Dean's in the movie a lot though. Like Dean's there with Damien. Like he's the one Damien's talking to for like 80% of the movie. Like he's there for ages.
I didn't even get to see Jesus.
To be fair, it's not like he wanted to see Jesus for most of the movie. He was pretty in the other camp.
That's fair, yeah.
Until it turned on him, he was all pro Damien. But anyways,
everyone loves killing babies until it's their baby they have to kill.
So almost there's a lesson there. Almost there's a lesson. So like that's one element of this, right? Obviously, kind of at the end of the movie, Damien still wants to find the second coming. He still wants to kill his rival, and that's how like he's tricked into the final predicament, the final conflict, you might even say. But we'll save the ending for the ending, though, right? To go back, we have to talk about the 7 priests with 7 daggers who all come to the UK.
It's like a deleted verse from the 12 Days of Christmas.
Honestly, this is kind of wild stuff because it's this, this group of priests, and they start following Damien, and there's a scene where Damien's like on like a date effectively with his love interest and her son, and he's like, they're going to like it's not even like a fair, it's basically just, for some reason there's like tons of public speakers all in this one part of like the park, but they're walking through and he just notices like some people staring at him, and he's like, wait a minute, there's people here trying to kill me. This is some shady business. This is not right. And this is actually the thing that leads to like me complaining about the rules here for a second. In the first movie, I'm pretty sure it was very clearly stated that Damien had to be stabbed with all 7 of these daggers to kill him.
Yeah, I thought that was it. But I guess like this one, they're just saying like, oh no, like
one'll do.
Yeah, the others are like extra in case you lose one or whatever.
Yeah. Because this is the thing, he ends up like killing, by the time later in the movie and he's killed like most of these priests and there's only like 1 dagger left, he's still scared of that 1 dagger. That 1 dagger can still kill him. So yeah, it's okay, whatever, like we've changed the rules, fine, sure. But the ways,
and I don't know if they ever did they ever explain like why it specifically has to be these daggers? Like you're telling me you chop off his head, like that's not gonna work?
I mean, Damien says in this movie, he says these are the only things that can kill me on Earth. He says that line, which actually did make it feel a bit weird that they never showed him like going through something that should kill a normal person, but he like is okay. Like it's kind of crazy to me. There's not a scene where someone just tries to swing an axe at him or shoot him, or he's in a car accident where he clearly should be dead. And maybe this is where a modern movie would like have CG, like have him like, like Wolverine regenerate or something. But like it's kind of strange that he's technically unkillable, but they never like show him either the Wolverine way or do it the Superman way where he's just impenetrable and nothing breaks his skin or whatever. But either way, so these priests, like they're sneaking around, they're hiding in this little like hotel or whatever it is, and they're making their plans. So the attempts on his life. So the love interest in this movie is a TV journalist. So Damien's doing an interview for her on her TV show, and the first attempt on his life is this priest who's...
Today I'm interviewing famous Antichrist.
No, he's like a Lex Luthor almost, because he's running Thorn Enterprises and he's doing all this stuff.
Thorn Enterprises does sound like something a supervillain.
It does. I mean, well, Thorn's an intentional choice because Thorn, Crown of Thorns, all that business. Yeah. But yeah, this priest is up in the rafters. He's up in the lighting rigs up above the set, and this idiot like fails. It's not like he just tries to kill Damien and Damien's able to like, dodge out the way or like hit him back, or his bodyguards jump in and take care of him. No, this guy just trips and falls off the lighting rafters. His foot gets caught in one of the cables and he's dangling upside down, and it's like, I think he drops like a flame or something, because it sets fire to like a big one of the big like tables or something, the curtains, and he's like swinging backwards and forwards on the set, which is silly in and of itself, but he then swings through the flame that he created. Maybe it was like lights that exploded or something when he fell out. Well, either way, there's a fire like in one particular part and he swings through it, so then he's swinging on fire through the set until he's just got a charred corpse hanging there, and I'm like, this is a comedy of errors. Like I think the implications might be like the power of Satan is like saving Damien, like Satan stepping in and like doing this all mystically, but it just comes across as slapstick.
Oh yeah, it just feels like he goofed up, but then unlike I don't know, some Urkel like character who has like a little accident. Actually, this is kind of Urkel-esque in how over the top it is. But it's just, and again, like it maybe feels bad to when you're just describing it, but when you're watching it, it is just so funny to see this guy swinging back and forth on fire, and it's like it is not even close. Like it's not like he was like that close to getting Damien and then he just missed it. It's like he's just swinging away, and they're just watching him like, ugh, sucks to be that guy.
Well, and these priests are incompetent. There's a whole other section where Damien, again using Satan magic or whatever, basically tricks two of the priests into thinking that he's like walking down the street or whatever, and like they put like a jacket over his head, and two of the priests stab the shit out of him, right? They stab the shit out of what they think is Damien with these daggers, and then they lift off the coat and find out that it's one of their own priests. It's another priest that they've just stabbed to death, and they're like, shit, what have we done? And then they like run away and hide like in like a cellar or something. They go to the sewers, and I'm like, they're incompetent. Like, there's no way to read this other than just like absurd. And then two of them die because there's a whole section of the movie where, of course, Damien's evil, so he goes fox hunting because it's just an evil thing to do.
I think weirdly enough, I feel like this whole fox hunting scene was like the one thing I remembered about the movie.
Really?
I don't know why.
Yeah, I'd forgotten this, and I'd forgotten the swinging the TV show. The scene that I remembered, other than the baby, like, you know, the ball hitting the head and the baby going out of the road, is actually a scene we've not talked about yet, which is right at the start. I'll go back and talk about that later because it's kind of just a standalone death scene. But
I know I do want to talk about the fox hunting scene because I do have some questions, but this one,
I mean, if it's about fox hunting, Tim, I can't help you. I don't know much about fox hunting.
Well, the only thing I thought was weird was at the end when the little kid, was it Peter?
It was, yeah. It's the love interest son.
Yeah, he like, you know, he's part of it too, and I guess, you know, he doesn't catch a fox or whatever, so he's like a little upset, and then Sam Neill like spreads some blood on his face. Like, is that a thing that's part of fox hunting? Like, you need to get blood on you?
I have never heard of it in my life, Tim. I do not know. This was strange. Obviously, it's the blood of like one of the people that he's killed, which is extra weird. But even if this was the fox's blood, like he's pretending it is, it's still weird. I don't want fox's blood in my face, you weirdo.
Right, and as I mean, you know, fox hunting sounds awful and barbaric, so I'm not interested in it in any way. But from what I understood, I thought it was mostly just like, you know, the dogs chase it and kill it, or you shoot it with a gun. But like, it's not like you're killing it yourself and you're so close that the blood is splattering in your face. Like, it doesn't seem like a thing that would happen.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's like a tribal, like you use the blood as war paint kind of thing. But I guess I never pictured the aristocrats, you know, the 1%ers in England doing it that way. But
and so I will say the part of this that made me laugh was so at the end, you know, it's kind of like on this bridge with two priests.
He's lured onto the bridge because they like to have their own fox or something, and they lure like the chase onto the bridge. And Sam Neill has like 25 dogs, I think, with him, right, on this bridge. And he's on the middle of the bridge, and it's this moment where like one priest is at one end of the bridge and gets out of the car and he's ready with a dagger. At the other end of the bridge, the priest who like lured the fox out there is on a horse and he's got a dagger. So he's got like a priest coming from both sides. The priest and the horse, basically Sam Neill, Damien, just does a bit of the Jedi mind trick, the Satan mind trick on the horse, and the horse just throws the guy off into the river. Like, he just goes over the edge of the bridge, and that's comical, right?
That's funny, yeah.
Right? And then after that, he just turns and looks at the guy that's near the car coming towards him with the dagger and says, "Get him." And 30 dogs just all rush up to this guy and start mauling him. And Sam Neill just stands there smirking like, "Oh, you never had a chance."
So the two things that got me about this scene, one is it felt like it was taking a while, so I just wanted to scream, like when Sam Neill's kind of doing his thing with the horse. I just wanted to scream at the guy that was behind him. I was like, just run up and stab him. Like, he's waiting so long. I was like, for God's sake, just run. But then the other thing that made me laugh is, Sam Neill has all these dogs, and usually when we see like a dog in the Omen, it's this very like, you know, vicious, like, you know, demonic, like Rottweiler.
And to be fair, like all the ones we see in the rest of the movie that do all the trancing to make people do stuff, either kill someone else or kill themselves, it's always one of those dogs that you're talking about.
Yeah, but these, I don't know, I'm not sure what type of dogs they were, and obviously I'm sure they're used for fox hunting, so they, you know, can be vicious or whatever. But when they start running at the guy, like, they don't look intimidating at all. Like, to me, it just looked like, you know, 20 or 30 like big puppy dogs that are running to like jump up and lick your face or something. Like, it did not look like, oh my God, get out of there, they're gonna kill you. It was like, oh my God, like so many puppies are coming at you.
yeah, but they're being controlled by the Antichrist, so they're vicious now. They can kill you. They've got the physical capabilities.
I guess they looked like good boys to me.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, this is basically it. At this point, there's only one priest left, and he sees the TV report about the dead babies and goes to speak to the reporter, the journalist, who's also Damien's love interest, and presents her with the evidence saying, hey, this has happened, and by the way, Damien Thorne's the Antichrist. And she doesn't believe him, because she actually has sex with Damien after this scene. Like, she just disregards this. It's ridiculous. Of course, she
love a bad boy.
Yeah, but he does say, hey, there's proof. He'll have 666 on the back of his head under the hair. And of course, she does eventually see that after. Because Damien, like, after sex, he goes to, like, sleep naked in front of the statue of Christ that they've got, like, in his house for reasons. Yeah, that was an interesting choice on his part, but yeah. She sneaks up behind him and sees the thing, and it's worth mentioning Damien's basically like taking over her son. Like, her son's doing like spy work for him. That's actually how Damien knows some stuff about Dean, is because the kid was spying on like his house and stuff. So yeah, I mean, like, yeah, by the end of the movie it kind of becomes about Kate. What was her name? Yeah, Kate. It's kind of about her trying to like help the last priest kill Damien and get her son back in some capacity, because Damien has her son, and she goes to him and says, hey, I know where the second coming is, and if you give me my son back, I'll take you to him. And he's like, fine, that's a great idea, but you better not be playing a trick, because if you really want your son back, that's not going to work. And
he said it with just that tone.
Yes, of course he did. And of course, like, the son the entire time is just kind of like still on his side, because the son's like indoctrinated, like he's just worshipping Satan at this point. But the end of the movie is that she leads him out to this place. It's like an old, it does look like sort of fairly, it's like ruins of some kind. Yeah. But the priest is waiting with a dagger and jumps out, and this also made me burst out laughing for two reasons, actually. So basically, the priest jumps out, and Damien grabs the kid and uses him as a shield, and the priest stabs the kid in the back with one of these daggers, which absolutely, like, we've already killed so many children in this movie, and then this happens, and this was just hilarious to me. But what also got me, though, is that the priest then goes to tackle Damien, but he doesn't like pull the dagger out to take the dagger with him. He leaves the dagger in the kid's back, which is like, it's so contrived, because the reason why he does that is so that when the priest is fighting with Damien, Kate can run up behind Damien and stab him with a dagger, right? That's what happens. But the fact that he doesn't, like, why would he even let go of it? Why would he not just like pull it out immediately? I don't understand why he leaves it in the kid and then goes to fight the Antichrist without the one weapon that can kill him. It's absurdly stupid on this character's part. But yeah, Damien gets stabbed by Kate with the dagger. He starts stumbling around, and then a big floating Jesus appears in front of him. And Damien dies in front of him, although he says right before he goes, he's like, "You've won nothing," and keels over. And then we get a couple of quotes from the Bible about how the second coming won't be a human, it won't be a child, it'll be a force or some shit, I don't know.
Yeah.
I only have, I was like, okay, we're just straight up doing this ultra happy ending where Damien's defeated. I guess they called it the final conflict. It's the end of a trilogy in their heads, I assume, when they were making this. My other thing is, though, is that he killed so many like kids in this movie that they had to like have him lose at the end. Otherwise,
I guess that makes sense.
It would be too much. He had to lose at the end. Like, he had to finally be defeated, because they, Omen 1 and 2 both ended with, the villain won. Like, there was no happy ending in those movies.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty downer endings, but I don't know. Like, I thought it was. I always thought it was interesting that, I think I mentioned this before in like the some of the other episodes, but yeah, I thought it was interesting that they do opt to go for that, more, I guess, kind of like sad bummer ending, and also like for as religious as the movies were, like they never really felt super like, you know, like rah rah we love Jesus kind of thing, which like this movie gets like very like, oh, like Jesus-y God, light will save us all kind of thing, which was I wasn't really expecting.
Yeah, and it's
I don't know.
like it's mentioned a couple times, but really it's just the ending where it just suddenly lays it on super thick because he's staring up at Christ.
Yeah.
Very, 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 very odd. Yeah, the ending's kind of like, it's like, oh, we went there. Is kind of the feeling I had as it was wrapping up. Her kid may not be dead. They're carrying him away as if maybe he's still alive. I mean, he was worshipping Satan at this point. Maybe he was a lost cause. I mean, maybe Kay should just count her lucky chickens that he's out of the life. Now we have to go back and talk about the opening death scene, though. I realize we're going all out of order in this one, but
the ambassador.
Yeah, because there's a moment at the start where Sam Neill says to Dean, "Oh, like I'm going to be given the offer of being UK ambassador, like soon by the president," and Dean's like, "But what about the current ambassador?" And Sam Neill just smiles at him. Cut to the ambassador walking to his job in England, and as he's walking down this park path, one of the evil dogs shows up, one of the devil dogs, and stares at him and has clearly tranced him into committing suicide. But not only committing suicide with like an audience, because we get this elaborate thing where he walks back to his office, doesn't really say anything to anyone until he like goes on the intercom and tells his secretary to order a press conference in his office at 3 p.m. And then he sets up an elaborate, like, jigsaw-like trap, right? Like, Jigsaw himself would have done this, where he uses the ink ribbon of his typewriter to rig, like, a pulley system from the door round to a gun that he's got pointed at him at his desk, so that when the secretary opens the door for the press to come in, that'll trigger the gun, and he, gets shot. And it builds up. It has this sort of like crescendo of escalating until the moment where the door's opened, and it sort of builds the tension quite well. And I think my favorite thing about this is that when the gun goes off, you get a really good shot of his head going back and the bullet appearing in the blood. But my favorite thing is that there's a wide shot of him afterwards, and his foot is kind of like jittering for like a couple of seconds before it stops. And I thought that just added a little bit of spice to it. Just a little bit of like, I don't know, just it felt kind of like more real, I guess, because of it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a fun scene. It's very over the top, but also like, it's very gory. And again, I guess it kind of sounds weird to be like, it's fun, but
it is.
It is an entertaining scene. I don't know if I really understand the point of it. Like, surely if you can, trance someone into killing themselves, like, it's probably easier to just be like, yeah, go back and kill yourself. Like, I don't really understand the elaborate setup.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's fun. It makes it a much more interesting and memorable scene.
I'm trying to think if there's any benefit for Damien that this is like a public thing, so there's no... Because obviously the first movie had a character commit suicide because a dog made them, right? That was something that was in the first movie. That's not... And even that was on show as well. Keep in mind, when the nanny in the first movie didn't just kill herself, she made a point of like making sure
That's
everyone there could see it. She shouted out, "Hey Damien, this is for you," and everyone witnessed it. So maybe that's just what they were going for here, is the idea that if one of these dogs makes you commit suicide, it's like, no, you have to like show it to people. You have to be horrific about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, maybe the devil or whatever likes that more if it's like, spreading fear or whatever or something. I guess what's kind of funny is I never really thought of it like with the first movie as, oh, like the dog is literally, making you do these things. I always thought like the dog just kind of, would appear as like, like an omen or something, like just like this kind of, precursor for like something bad is happening. But yeah, this one makes it seem like much more obvious. Like, no, the dogs are literally like telling people to do this.
Yeah, that was always the vibe I got in the first movie with the nanny. Because, the way it stares at her, and then it kind of, you get close up of the eyes, and then she goes up and does that, and it's a complete 180 in what she was acting like before.
I guess so. I don't know. I guess that just never occurred to me. It just seemed like, oh, this is just like a weird, set dressing or something. I never thought like, oh, it's making them do that. But
it does create the problem though, is why doesn't he just have dogs like, trans more people to do things when they're a problem
Very
for
true.
him? Like,
Yeah.
you could just be doing this left and right if you really wanted to.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's a bit strange. But honestly, this death stands out as being the best death, I would say, of the movie. But the movie is full of other wacky scenes that aren't necessarily. I mean, they are death scenes,
I would say,
kind of, but like they're not death scenes. Like that, because this is the only death in the movie that is like the second movie, where it's like the forces are making someone die because they're a problem for Damien. Whereas all the other deaths are either the priests that are trying to kill him and them almost like either self-inflicted because they're idiots or because Damien tricks them or like defends himself, or the baby stuff is more kind of like a mass, like, it's more of a specific reason why that's happening compared to the other death.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, obviously, this opening scene and then the one with the priest that's like in the TV studio, like those are the best, because I mean, obviously they're very over the top and everything, but also you end up seeing the most with that. Like a lot of the other stuff, you just don't really see a lot. Like when the guy's getting attacked by the dogs, it's basically just him right up to a car, and then you assume the dog's like underneath him biting him, but you don't actually see anything.
No, that's true, but I think like the baby carriage scene is arguably like one of the standouts, and you don't really see much there either, but it's just really funny. Like,
oh sure,
the what's happening is really funny, even if you're not seeing like gore or whatever.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, I think it's got a lot of standout kind of like wacky scenes like that. The stuff we've kind of glossed over is mostly just like Damien growing closer to Kate and like being on like a date with her. There's a whole bit at one point where he kind of like seems to intentionally make her fall into like the river, and I don't really know what the purpose of it was. Like she leans against the banister and it just immediately just crumbles. So it felt like like he was because it felt like he kept edging her on to like, hey, look over the edge, there's something in there, kind of thing. And I thought this was actually him trying to take her out because, not out to dinner, but like out to take her out of the picture because she's starting to like get close, or maybe because I think by this point she might have already talked to one priest, and perhaps like she talked to a priest, she has to be taken out now. She's getting close to the truth. We have to, deal with that. Maybe actually, now I'm thinking about it, the goal I suppose for Damien was to get her all wet, so she'd have to take her clothes off because then they have sex afterwards. So I guess in this
that's one way to get a woman wet.
I guess in this one particular case, his goals were actually a lot more normal. He was just a guy trying to get laid. That's all it was.
Sure.
And it seemed to work. So fair enough, I guess. She also could have drowned, which would have been less, like maybe. I mean, I'm sure Damien would just see that as sometimes you have casualties, in the pursuit of happiness. You have casualties here or there. It's kind of a wild movie, and I feel like I've almost by like cherry picking what to talk about, I've kind of made this a little bit shorter than perhaps like the past one was. But
well, I mean, we covered most of like the big stuff, and when we talk about these standout scenes, I think it does sound like more of a fun movie. But yeah, I got to keep in mind that, like you're saying, like there's a lot that's kind of a slog, like that's in between this stuff that is just not as interesting.
Yeah, no, it definitely has like everything we've brought up. There's at least some stuff in between everything to make it a bit slower overall. But to be fair, there is a lot of standout moments or funny moments or whatever that they do make it, I think, at least an interesting watch. That said, though, if you're someone who's watched The Omen and loved it and thinks, I don't really want to watch the sequels because I don't want to sully it, that's fine too. You don't have to watch any of the sequels. Leave them be. But 2 and 3 aren't bad watches. They're not good, but they're
not at all.
But they've got some things in them. I definitely didn't think that I'd come out of 3 thinking there was more memorable scenes than 2, but I think it might just about top it overall. It's just that in 2 they're all death scenes, whereas here they're kind of a mixture of death scenes and kind of sillier things that are happening. But
I don't know. I really have to think about which one I like better. But to me, they're pretty close. Like, in different ways too. Like, yeah, this one was definitely a bit more into some unintentional like cheesiness, comedic stuff. While the second one was maybe a bit more serious, but with like some maybe cooler kills. But I don't know. They're both again. I don't think they're hard watches. Obviously, I already said like they don't measure up to the first one, which is like just such a classic, so good. But yeah, I was kind of surprised that they're not that bad.
They're not that bad. What a main endorsement. And yes, it is a big word there. All right, well, I think we could do our usual questions here then. Tim, what was your favorite scene of the movie?
I think I'm gonna go with the TV studio death.
Yeah, I can argue.
Yeah,
that.
it was just so over the top and so funny. And again, I mean, maybe I can go back and it wasn't that long, but it just felt like he was swinging like forever. Like,
oh yeah,
the amount it was taken was really it's funny.
Legitimately impressive how many choices there are in this movie for a scene of the movie. I'm going to go with the baby killing montage because it's just like it's so funny. I mean, I even mentioned it ends with it's like two Boy Scouts at a front door. And they're like the woman opens the door and they just say something like, "We're here to help you today, ma'am." And they say "ma'am" because they're English, but lady. And they both just smile at her after they say that, and it's like, oh, they're there to kill her child, like they're there to kill her baby, and it just cuts there. You don't see anything else, but the implication that these two young boys are there to kill the baby is just really absurd and funny to me. So
you could probably just take this like. Most of the montage, like maybe not so much the start because you actually see the carriage getting hit by the car and stuff, but like everything after that, if you just showed it to someone, like they probably would have no idea what's going on. Like, all right, so what is this? It seems like just like a lot of people with doing something to babies. What exactly is this?
Yeah, what's going on? Yeah, I don't know. All right, MVP of the movie.
I mean, it's hard not to give it to Sam Neill. Yeah, I mean, he's just a great actor. I wouldn't say this is like his strongest or most memorable role, but I think he still did a good job, and it's always fun to see him.
Yeah, I mean, character-wise, there's not a lot of great choices. You got Dean, who's kind of prominent. You got the love interest, Kate, who she's a bit. I don't know. She doesn't really have that much of a character, really. It's kind of thin. She has a kid, and she's a journalist. That's kind of it. There's not really much more to it than that. I am going to say that the MVP of this movie is Christ, because Christ keeps Damien on his toes.
Sure.
Nah, I'm kidding. I don't even know what way to pick. I'm too much of an atheist to pick Christ, even as a joke.
That's fair.
No. I am not the Antichrist, but I am Antichrist.
Very good.
Put that on a t-shirt. Anyway, I don't know. Yeah, there's really no other choice than Sam Neill, really. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'll just say Sam Neill. I'm not feeling very passionate about it, though. Like, he's been better in other things, so...
I mean, it's pulling a lot of weight knowing him from, pick whatever number of iconic roles that he's had.
I'll say Priest number 3.
Priest number 3, okay.
Which one that is up to you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Tim, what are you rating the Omen 3, the final conflict?
So again, I don't think it is a hard watch, other than maybe being a bit of a slog at times, but there is enough cool, memorable stuff that, I think it's, worth watching and makes it a little bit memorable, but it's still not outstandingly great. It is a shame because, I do think, like you're saying, like, really, if you just tighten it up just like a little bit, like, just get rid of some of the more boring stuff, just make it pace a little better and just get to the good stuff faster, then it actually would be, again, not like a great or amazing movie, but I think it would be a lot more solid. But still, I think it's, it's not bad. It's okay. So I think I'm going to go with... I think just like a straight 6. Like,
that's what you gave Omen 2.
Yeah, so that's what it's similar territory for me. So
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah.
I gave Omen 2 a 5.5. So I guess based on what I've said, I'm at least giving this a 5.5. I am tempted to bump this up to the straight 6 though, and I think I will. And I think my reason for that is that I think Sam Neill this version of the characters is definitely hammy. I do think he's more interesting to watch than the 12, 13-year-old version from the last movie. I think the last movie has great death scenes. I think this one has some great standout scenes, but more of a variety of them. But obviously enough problems that whatever. So there you go. Hey, as Omen 3, the final conflict is done. And what do you do after?
Halfway through.
Oh, we are halfway through. Yes, very good. Now, what do you do after the final conflict? Well, you have him reborn into a girl, I guess. And I think Omen 4 is technically a made-for-TV movie. I want to say I could be wrong. But,
oh, boo!
But either
boo TV.
But either way, we'll have Omen 4 in the not too distant future, and by that I mean within a week. So look forward to that. It won't be the next episode, but it will be very, very soon. So look forward to Omen 4 and remake and first Omen. That's all the ones we have left. Okay. Thank you for joining us, everyone. This has been Screams After Midnight. You can support the show and help keep it coming by going over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You get some bonus content over there. Every month there's an exclusive episode that only Patreon members and YouTube members get. Plus, you also get access to even more streams, which is like a segment show where we'll do like a top 5, a top 10, or maybe we'll Tim will make a little trivia game for me to play or something. We do try and do one or two of those.
Search for the new Christ.
Yeah, we do at least one of those every month, sometimes two, along with the bonus episodes. So there's the Screams After Midnight content, but there's also bonus content for the Atomic Sam Experiment and Collector's Cut and the TV stuff over on MailFuzz TV. So go and check any of that out. Any support is greatly appreciated, and none of this would be possible without it. So thank you very much. But that is the show.
Can't believe we went the whole episode and we didn't make a final countdown joke.
It never even occurred to me to make a final countdown joke.
I thought you were gonna come in and be like, the final conflict.
I mean, if that song kicked in for the end credits, admittedly, I don't think it existed yet because this is 1981. Yeah. But still, I would have gotten points from me. Certainly.
Oh, yeah, that's a full one more point added.
Most likely. We never really talked about the director, actually. I mean, Graham Baker, I didn't recognize the name. Although he did do a movie that I'm literally about to record for Ace, which is called Alien Nation from later in the decade. So that's just a weird coincidence. But other than that, I can't say I recognize much of what he's done. Beowulf from 1999. People, I feel like I've heard of that.
I mean, I am familiar with the concept of Beowulf.
Oh, it's a sci-fi movie that's got a 4.1. Oh, jeez.
Is it like Beowulf 2099?
No, just Beowulf, but it does star Christopher Lambert from Highlander,
Mortal Kombat,
whatnot, and Rona Mitra. Okay, all right.
Wow, how'd you get her?
You don't know who Rona Mitra is, do you?
No.
That's fine. That's fine. She's not like a huge actress or anything, but she popped up in enough stuff in the mid-2000s that I remember who she is. Anywho, that has been Screams After Midnight. Thank you very much for joining us. Let us know what you think of the Omen 3 in the comments. Always nice to hear. And we'll see you next time. So keep watching scary movies and happy Octoberthon.